Hi there. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to Beyond the Frame. I'm your host, Ryan Vanderhei, and I've learned some of my most valuable life lessons from my favorite TV shows and movies, Joe. Sure, these works of art entertain us, offer us an escape, and even tap into our emotions. But there's one E that's often overlooked.
I'd say that's educational.
I'd say you're right.
Right, I'll keep going then. If viewed from a different perspective, these stories and their characters can help us to grow and learn and develop as human beings. I'm your co-host, Joe Parente, and it's our mission with this podcast to share these unique perspectives with you so that you can grow from the show.
The topic of today's discussion, the 1995 film Se7en, and the modern overindulgence in sin. As always, there will be spoilers ahead, so please proceed with caution and be sure to leave a like, rating, or a review wherever it is that you listen, as it really helps the show. Shall we begin, Joe?
Let's do this.
All right.
The answers that you're looking for are lying just beyond the frame.
David Fincher's Se7en. The man of the 90s. Brad Pitt, another man of the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Morgan Freeman, another man of the 90s.
Very true.
And one of my first times seeing Gwyneth Paltrow, I think, at the time, yeah. When I was thinking about this movie, and after I watched it last night, I've seen it several times.
Okay.
And in thinking of what I wanted to talk about here, what it was I wanted to tackle here, this movie itself is obviously very focused on this idea of like the 7 deadly sins and people living in sort of ignorance to these sins and committing them, and it's become a normal part of society, and we'll get into that. I was wondering, in your life, have you ever personally struggled with one of the any particular 7 deadly sin?
I'm trying so hard not to laugh, Ryan.
I want to focus on particulars here because obviously there's so many
Specifics, huh?
Yeah. And I'll maybe talk about my experience as well. But just to refresh for the people, the 7 deadly sins are gluttony, greed, sloth, pride, lust, envy, and wrath. And we see them all in this film. So yeah, just. Is there any particular one from that list that I mentioned that you yourself has maybe struggled with in your own life?
I think the easier question for me to answer is which two I don't relate to.
Okay.
Sloth and wrath.
Sloth and wrath.
Yeah,
Okay,
I don't really relate to either one of those.
So laziness.
No,
Sloth
that's not really been a thing for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then anger, wrath.
But I think of wrath as like anger on steroids.
Unchecked anger.
And it's also taking action.
Yeah.
You will feel my wrath.
Yeah,
I don't know,
yes.
it just sounds like the right way to say something like that.
No, well put.
So, thanks. So I just don't feel like I've had that kind of, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. You did me wrong. I'm going to get you. To me, that's my thinking of wrath. I'm not that guy.
Okay.
I've never been in a fight. I've never thrown a punch.
Okay.
I've never been hit.
Sure.
I was always fast.
Yeah, you are.
I could make trouble and get out.
Get out of there. You do strike. You're very and I obviously I don't know how you've been your whole life, but now at this point in your life where I've met you and where you've come to know each other, you are very like even keel. You're very like chill. You're very go with the flow. Keep the peace. Like, I don't see you as I could never, if you were like, yeah, wrath has been one I've really struggled, I would be mind blown, So.
If any of my friends are listening, they might have had a little chuckle at what you just said. But I think I've mellowed out with age. But I've just not had that kind of directed kind of anger at someone. And taken action from it.
Yeah.
But the other ones, envy and greed, I don't. That was what it was like 2.5. I don't really relate to greed in a big way.
Okay.
Either.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the other ones, I feel like I have intimate knowledge of.
Yeah,
quite frankly. And you?
And I like the way that you worded that. That's so funny because I was thinking about it and I was like, yeah, at one point or another in my life, I think I've struggled with each of these. At least at one point.
Oh, well, for sure.
At least one time. Now, have they plagued me? No. But I've at least experienced them and taken part. I've sinned in these ways many different times in my life. So I wanted to talk about one that's currently plaguing me.
Ooh,
right now as we speak.
Please, do say.
And that's envy.
Okay.
As an artist, in my case, a filmmaker, it's difficult to not look at other filmmakers and who've maybe have found success in this industry and compare myself to them and be jealous of what they've achieved. They essentially have the life I want, right? I'm watching them. I'm watching their movie. I'm going to the theater with other people that we're all paying to watch their work. That's what I want, right? Like I want my work to be seen by people. So I have this envy, and I do feel myself at times, especially if it's sometimes admiration, of course, right? Like sometimes I am in awe of them. Sometimes I am, there's appreciation, and I'm happy for them that they're getting that success. But then there's that little, it can turn. And sometimes when I don't like a film or I don't like a body of work, but they're working and they're being paid lots of money to do it, and they've got the contracts and they've got the life.
Does that make it even worse?
That's when the envy kind of starts to creep in, where I'm like, why you and not me? You know, and that's envy.
Sure is.
That's the exact definition of it. It turns ugly. That they somehow don't deserve it, but I do, right? That's a problem. And that's kind of where what we're talking about here with the 7 deadly sins. That's sort of the definition of envy, of like, you've got something I want. And we see from our characters here, 2 of them in particular exhibit 2 of these. And then obviously the others get played out. But yeah, I just felt like, again, like you, I could talk about any of them, you know, at length, but focusing on one that I'm actually right now, as we're having this conversation, that I'm dealing with in my own life, I think was a better way to voice that.
I can completely relate to that too.
Yeah.
As an actor, I look at just even in class, I look at somebody who crushes it on a day when I didn't. And I just think, why couldn't I have tapped into something like I just saw them do? And watching all these movies that we watch and all these shows, and I'm in awe of so many of the performances we see, having an idea of what it takes to do that, that I completely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I think as an artist in any capacity, that's sort of like a natural course of action. And it's something that, at least I myself, I can't speak for anybody else, but I know myself, I'm trying to work on that. I'm trying to work on not feeling that way, because it doesn't feel good.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't feel good at all. And it's also, to me, it's a, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
To me, when I feel that, I know I am experiencing a complete breakdown of perspective. That's the way I look at it. When I'm feeling that, it's like I'm out of whack here.
Yeah, that's.
I'm not looking at this accurately.
Sure.
Because then, if you were, you'd understand the insanity of the comparison.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people would kill to be where you are.
Yeah, quite true.
Somebody could be looking at you thinking the same thing.
Absolutely.
So it's all relative. It's all perspective.
It is.
That's a good way to put it. So let's dive into 7, shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's give them a quick recap here, just in case you haven't seen it in a while. It's a bit of an older film.
I love how you say in a while. If you haven't seen it in a while,
the
assumption is that all y'all have seen it.
Yeah. So Detective Somerset, played by Morgan Freeman, is 7 days from retiring from the police as a homicide detective. By the way, this is an unnamed city.
Yeah, it is.
They never say. You don't know if we're in New York, if
Sure.
we're in the weather's kind of crazy, so you think maybe Pacific Northwest. We don't know.
It's just
never said.
super grungy.
Super grungy.
Yeah.
So we're in a city. It's kind of grungy.
More than kinda.
His replacement, Detective Mills, played by Brad Pitt, arrives on the scene of a brutal homicide where a man was forced to eat to death.
Bah.
Detective Somerset refuses to take the case because he knows it'll go longer than his planned retirement. This is going to turn into something else. I can't do this.
Right?
So, but he's sucked in anyway, right? Because then another one happens. They start to connect the dots. As these murders happen and uncover, the killer is murdering his victims as an example of each of the 7 deadly sins. So every time one is killed, like the first is a representation of gluttony. And then later when they go back behind the fridge, I think it is written in Greece, gluttony. And then there's like a little note that has like some sort of quote. But then the second is the greed. And I don't want to get into, because we're going to get into specifics. I don't want to go through the whole movie. So anyway, that's where we're at. So there's a killer. We've got our 2 detectives. And let's dive into scene 1, shall we? So after they have a shootout with their alleged serial killer, right? They trace it back through the FBI's
Right.
little bit of information.
Yeah, exactly.
They find him. They have like a little bit of shootout, and Brad gets hurt. Sorry, I'm saying Brad. Detective Mills gets hurt. And then when in his apartment, they discover 2,000 notebooks. 2,000, Morgan Freeman's character says. God, I always like want to say the actor instead of the character.
I hear ya.
Detective Somerset, played by Morgan Freeman, starts reading from one of them, and he says, well, Detective Mills says, yeah, whatever. Is there anything in there about the murders? And then Somerset says, as he's reading, this is a quote directly from the notebook, what sick, ridiculous puppets we are. What a gross little stage we dance on. What fun we have, dancing, fucking, not a care in the world, not knowing that we are nothing. We are not what was intended. And so this kind of starts to unravel and shape our theme here of sin in the modern world. We have gotten so far away from the serial killer's mind and why he's doing what he's doing. We've gotten so far away from it. All around us, everyone's sinning. And we don't know, we don't realize that we're engaging in this behavior. It's so far from our conscious mind that we're not even aware that we're doing it. It's everywhere, all around us. Everyone's doing it. And so I just thought this was such a poignant quote that he chose to read, especially after Mills says, is there anything in there about the murders? And then this is the quote that he chooses to pull. It's a representation of why, the motive, right? Because oftentimes when detectives are looking for, they want a motive for the killings, the murders. And so here is their motive. In the mind of this killer, clearly he's saying there needs to be some sort of retribution. By doing this, I'm bringing the attention to the fact of how egregious we all are choosing to live our lives in sin. So I just thought that was like a great scene and a great moment that kind of reinforces that this theme that we're talking about here about sin in the modern world. So let's talk about another one, but first, let's do a bad guy break.
Let's do it.
So as always, 4 hints to guess this popular fictional character.
Not sure I'm even going to step up to the plate.
I'm not going to say antagonist. Character here. This is one of those ones where I'm kind of fudging the lines here. I want to just
fudge them.
Yeah, I don't want to do an antagonist.
Okay. All right.
I'm thinking of this theme of sin and maybe a character that engaged in this to a extreme degree. So the year that this film came out is 2022. Very recent. The genre is a dramatic tragedy. The only way you can put this one. The setting is modern-day New York. And the actor is Brendan Fraser.
Oh, wow. Oof. What a performance.
So, if you don't know, I'm talking about Charlie from The Whale, the film based on a play by, who's the director here?
I do not remember. But it's gonna come back to us.
Somebody big.
It's gonna come back to us. I know it.
Somebody who I half like, half don't like. That's all I remember. It's Soder. Is it Soderbergh? No, it's not. It's Aronofsky. Yeah, it's
Darren.
Aronofsky. Darren.
Yeah.
By the way, if anybody's never been to the Sphere yet in Vegas, Aronofsky, right? Am I right there? Aronofsky made the film that they play in the Sphere. You know, the Sphere has like concerts and things like that, but they have like an experience, the Sphere experience or whatever. You can go and like sit and like watch a film. He shot it. Man, it is insane. It's like Life on Earth or something like that.
That guy's got talent.
He does.
He really does.
In this case, exceptionally so.
Yeah, agreed.
So Charlie, if you haven't seen the movie in The Whale, I'm going to spoil it for you, suffers from the first of our 7 deadly sins here in this film, and that's gluttony. So he overindulges in food as his vice for his depression, and it ultimately leads to his death by the end of the film. It really highlights this film specifically how much of a slippery slope indulging in a vice is and can be. Nobody thinks that they're going to end up like that, right? When we see people who are extremely overweight or something of this matter, or somebody who's strung out, how do you, what's the thing everyone says? God, how do you let yourself go?
Yeah.
How do you end up like that? No one going in, like, these people aren't starting to eat more food and going, yeah, I'm going to end up being 450 pounds. And, you know, that's never the occasion. It starts out as a simple vice. It's a simple outlet for you to deal with complex emotions that you can't. It gives you a bit of relief and escape. I know people in my own life that food is their vice. That's where they get their comfort. That's their comfort zone. Let me stay home. Let me sit on the couch and let me eat food. It's completely reasonable. And it always starts out so simple as that. And that relates to this movie in a lot of ways. I know that film, The Whale, was not an exact exploration of that, but it just reinforces kind of how easy it is and how slippery of a slope it is, that you're one step away from falling off the cliff, basically. So that's our bad guy break.
Okay.
Let's get back
Good
to
one.
7, huh?
Let's do it.
This intense, insane, crazy movie we got here.
Dark. And all I kept thinking watching this movie was caffeinated. I just kept thinking this is a super caffeinated movie.
That's a good way.
Because there was like, the sound was loud, and there, a lot of times they were talking fast, and there was no talking loud. It was like
every scene
your
was
face.
intense. And
Very intense.
Yeah, you're right. And Fincher has a bit of a way with that.
Yeah.
I mean, Fight Club's very much that. It's a caffeine film, if you will.
It is.
Yeah. So
It's so true.
So the scene I want to get back to here. After the two detectives find the dead prostitute, representing the sin of lust, they're talking about it at the bar. They go to like maybe have a drink and blow off some steam and talk about what they've been going through. They've been out for a long time, right?
And now these guys are getting along too.
Now they're kind of like on a they're understanding each other a bit. And so they're just two guys just got off work and they're talking at the bar about what's going on. And Somerset says, oh God, why am my brain blanking here? Morgan Freeman's character.
Yeah.
God, I don't know why I couldn't think of that. He says, and I quote, "I don't think I can continue to live in a place that embraces and nurtures apathy as if it was a virtue." Boy, that hits home, huh? That line really brings.
And he did say, Well, and you have that quote there.
Yes,
Because
and
go ahead,
great.
please.
And Mills presses him, and he says, he's no better. And Somerset agrees. He goes, you're absolutely right. He sympathizes. And he says, apathy is a solution. It's easier to lose yourself in drugs than it is to cope with life.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to steal what you want than earn it. It's easier to beat a child than raise it. To which Mills replies, we're talking about people who are mentally ill. We're talking about crazies here. And then Somerset says something fan-fucking-tastic.
I totally agree. I thought this was the best interaction.
Best line of the damn movie. He goes,
I thought so too.
no, we're talking about everyday life here.
That's right. I thought that was showing the delta of their 20 years of life on the planet. There was more than that in the movie. I looked up their actual ages. Brad Pitt was like 31. Morgan Freeman was 58.
Okay.
And so you could really see the difference in their perspectives there. Yeah. I thought that was such a brilliant line. And that just comes from somebody who, use the word I used earlier, perspective. They have real perspective on those are not outliers we're talking about. That's everyday life, all of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're thinking about it in terms of, especially coming from Brad's character, Detective Mills, these are extreme circumstances that they're in. It's extreme situations where they're finding people brutally murdered. But it's just a representation of how a majority of the people are living. Majority of the people are engaging in some of these sins, if not a majority of them, but not in the same capacity as what we're seeing here. And it's exactly right what you're saying. Somerset has perspective. He's been around. He's been doing this in this city for a long time. He's retirement.
Mm-hmm.
He's retirement age. He's ready to be done. And he's seen some things, and he's been around it. And so he knows that this is just everyday life. This is just people.
Mm-hmm.
This is just how we all are. And I especially like that he says that Mills presses him, and he says, "Yeah, you're right. I'm no better.
Yeah,
I agree. I sympathize. I agree.
Yeah,
It's easier.
Yeah,
to do these things and to not fight it, to not go against it. It's like he says, and too, I think to what your point is. Mills says the crazy things, and then Somerset's direct reply, I think, is like, you cannot be that naive.
That's right.
He's like, you can't be. You cannot be in your position as a detective in this city and be that naive. You can't. And that's, calls back to earlier when he was with the captain, and he was like, he's not ready for this.
Yeah.
He's not ready for
How right
like
he
this.
was.
Yeah. He was correct. Yeah. Detective Mills was not, in fact, ready for this.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
It was absolutely true. So it just, I just love that line, man. And it really calls back to the theme here, again, about how there's modern overindulgence in sin, whereas maybe in previously it was something you did every once in a while, and you repented for your sins or whatever it is, and asked for forgiveness. But then now it's just become such a it's just routine. That's kind of what this scene says. This is just everyday life, like he says. Everybody's doing this stuff, man. It ain't crazies. It's not psychopaths.
That's right.
It's the mailman. It's the
That's
the
right.
person, your neighbor.
It's just that the serial killer that they're pursuing is this on steroids. Just a really magnified example.
Right. He's taking these, and that was his whole. As we see his basic. I don't know if you want to say confession in the car on the way out to the desert. That was his whole MO. Yeah, I want people to know. I'm trying to have people see and understand and highlight this. Like, that's the whole point here.
Which was also incredibly naive when he said that. I
Correct.
thought incredibly naive.
Correct.
Like, what you're doing here is going to make all the difference. And,
right.
Okay. All right.
And that
Delusional.
Mills tries to check him too. He's like,
nobody's
going to be talking about this shit tomorrow.
Exactly.
It's going to be forgotten.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that was just such a, oh man, great performances all around too.
Completely agree.
So why don't we give these people a fun fact, huh?
Yeah, do it.
Let's take a little break here and give a little fun fact
We
about
love
the
fun
film.
facts.
There was a lot of good ones, but I tried to kind of narrow down what I think
Okay.
people could maybe understand and remember the most. So there's a memorable scene, and we talked about a little bit earlier, where they have the chase.
Yeah.
And they find the serial killer.
Yeah.
And then he shoots at him, and it's like a shootout, and they're running and,
Yeah.
and whatever. During the chase, Brad Pitt's arm went through a car windshield, which required surgery during active shooting.
Whoa.
This accident was worked into the final cut of the film. So his actual arm going through the windshield, of course you're going to put that in the movie.
Right.
I mean, you have to, right? Coincidentally, the original script called for Detective Mills to be injured during the sequence.
Which he most certainly was.
Which he most certainly did. So it was life imitates art. You know what I mean?
Can I throw out another one of where life imitates art?
Oh boy, here we go.
This was Brad Pitt shooting Troy. He played Achilles.
Yes.
Is that Troy?
Yes.
And he tore his Achilles during the filming of that.
Oh,
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
No,
Isn't that
that's
the
terrible.
ultimate irony?
that's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is
So-
funny. So here, yeah, again, it's like it makes sense. It's funny that,
Yeah.
written as the guy, I imagine the screenwriter, it's like, oh yeah, it'd be good if he gets hurt here. If something happens to him, and then they're filming it, and
And
lo and
boy,
behold,
wasn't
Brad
he.
Pitt's in the, in the surgery wing of the hospital getting
dang.
patched up.
So that was a real cast.
That was a real cast.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
That was a great scene too.
It was.
When he knocks him on the head, and then he can shoot him, but he doesn't, which we later learn out why he didn't.
Exactly. He was spared for a reason.
But let's get back to
Okay, let's.
the film here, and let's talk about another scene. And this is also one of my favorite scenes in the movie, but it reinforces our theme here. So in the car, on the way to find the last two bodies, the detectives have John Doe, our serial killer. He's in the back seat.
Who surrendered himself, by the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Mills says he kills innocent people. And John Doe's reply is, and I quote, "How could you even try to say these were innocent people?" And he goes on to list all the victims and how they sinned. I don't have time to go through them all. But he says something else that's really interesting. And I quote, we see a deadly sin on every street corner, in every home, and we tolerate it because it's common, because it's trivial." So, as we talked about the bar scene, as we talked about the other scene prior, there seems to be, and the John Doe has clocked this, obviously he's made it his life's work for whatever reason, that each of us is engaging in these sins in a way that is ignorant. It's so far become a part of daily life, and just as Somerset said, everyday people, this is just everyday life. It's trivial now. It's commonplace.
Because we're desensitized to it.
We're desensitized to it. Once something happens enough, once it becomes commonplace, then it loses all of its kind of shock factor and shock value, right?
I hear you. I think there has to be, there's a matter of degree though too. Here.
Okay. Expand.
If it's, let me see, I'm trying to think of an example of one of these things. Yeah, you can have envy that's mild, and it actually might put a little blue flame under your butt to do something.
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't just mean that it's a deadly sin and it's bad, bad, bad.
Oh, and any time you ever engage in it.
Correct. And so that's where it is common, because I think people in the course of a day can feel most of those.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't mean that it's the decay of civilization.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they are horrible people.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily equate with apathy, or it doesn't mean that, that the walls are coming down or falling apart at the seams. I think it has to be looked at through a lens of understanding, like Somerset does, rather than just taken as like, you have greed, you have envy, you have gluttony.
You're wrong.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
bad. You're in the wrong here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think, and I love that you said that, and that's exactly relating back to our theme here: overindulgence in sin. So there is a delicate balance, I think. I don't think that every time, and this is just me personally, I'm just speaking for myself here. I don't think that any time you overeat, you're this sinning, like horrible person who's engaging in it.
And it doesn't mean you're going to keep doing that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I've overeaten at times in my life, 100%.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean if you're lusting after someone that sometimes that's a good thing.
It can be.
It can be.
It's part of what's kept our species propagating.
You need it. It's a natural part of life.
Exactly.
It's also, we have the balance, but we also have the context. I think that's what you're getting at, the lens through which you look at it.
Exactly.
Because if two single people are at the bar and they have a connection, they see each other, there's lust there, there's interest there, are they engaging in this super deadly sin that's going to destroy both of their lives? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe it leads to
could lead to actual love.
Actual love, them being together, producing children, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So the context and the balance, that's what you need. I think this movie in particular is magnifying the overindulgence.
Right. Totally.
The whale, the overindulgence.
Right.
That slippery slope that you can easily tumble down if not checked. You know. And so I think
agreed.
This last scene here, prior to them finding out that, which was so good, that I love when they're in the desert. This isn't the scene I want to talk about, but they're in the desert and he's got him and he's like, oh, look, he's coming back after he sees the head. Somerset sees the head. And then
he's running
to try to like, put the gun down. He's going to win. And then John Doe looks at Detective Mills and he says, are you listening to me? I wish I was you. So he's guilty of envy. Sure is. And then, as we've seen throughout the film, Mills is guilty of wrath.
Yes.
He gets angry at the guy, the photographer, which actually was our guy, our serial killer. Yep. There's a few times in the film where we notice that that guy can snap.
Oh yeah.
He can snap. Yeah. And he does.
Twitchy trigger finger. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he, spoiler alert, he shoots him and then gives him exactly what he wants. This was the whole point. You proved my point. Yeah. And now you're in the back of a cop car.
Yeah. Your life is totally ruined. Well, his life had been ruined before that.
Yeah. As his girlfriend's head
the deal
was in the box.
His wife. Yeah.
His wife. Yes. Sorry.
And I hadn't seen that movie before. So, when the box arrived, I was like, oh no. And as soon as he said there's blood, I'm like, oh, I know it's in that. And I was just wondering if we were going to see a Gwyneth Paltrow head or not.
So you haven't seen that scene before?
I hadn't seen the whole movie.
Whoa.
I'd never seen it before. Before watching it this morning.
That's such it's almost like I feel like people mock Brad Pitt for that scene.
What's in the box?
Yeah. What's in the box?
Yeah. I thought that was an unusual way of saying it.
Right. It's like a meme almost.
It definitely got my attention.
Yeah.
Which I can appreciate.
So that's our theme for today. Why don't we give these people some recommendations, huh?
Do it.
Let's give them a top 5. So if you like the movie Seven by David Fincher, and you want to see 5 more movies like it, here's 5 you can stream right now. The first, Prisoners, the 2013 film starring Hugh Jackman, and that's streaming on HBO Max. The second, Decision to Leave, the 2022 film starring Tang Wei, and that's streaming on Mubi. The third, True Detective Season 1.
Loved it.
This movie oozes that. And that's a TV series starring Matthew McConaughey, streaming on HBO right now. HBO Max. The fourth, keeping it in the Fincher family here, Zodiac, the 2007 film starring Jake Gyllenhaal. You can find that on Paramount Plus. And the fifth, The Usual Suspects.
That doesn't.
The
Yeah.
1995 film starring Kevin Rapey Spacey, streaming on HBO Max as well. So to recap here, what did we learn from watching the movie Seven, Joe? In life, there are temptations, vices, opportunities for debauchery and depravity.
Hope so.
Throughout,
Sorry.
throughout every stage of our lives, Joe. So you have fun yet to have.
Oh, good.
Each of us is uniquely individual in our own way. And our relationship to these vices differs from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it shouldn't be our goal to eliminate these temptations completely, like we said, but rather to find a delicate balance between overindulgence and abstinence. Only you know what that balance is, and you owe it to yourself to find it out.
Totally agree. People do owe it to themselves to understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you'd spent, I recommend, this is me, spend more time self-reflecting. Spend more time, do a little introspection. Look within.
But there's social media and
yeah, you're right. No, you're
so-
right. So I don't have to.
so I don't have time. I
I can't. You're right. No, spend time,
I totally
looking
agree with you.
within.
Yeah, for sure.
And understanding yourself and how you work. Because you're different. I'm
Yep.
different. John Doe's different.
Ryan, I couldn't agree more. We'd have a different planet
We'd have
if more people did that.
Sure.
We would.
Sure. And maybe that's what this movie's trying to say.
In a really caffeinated way.
In a really catastrophic, gruesome,
Whew.
gory,
Gritty. Yeah.
dark way.
Yeah. Loud. Yeah.
Let's just all take a second to look within.
Mm.
So, as always, thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, you're the main character of your own life. So, like we were just saying, don't be afraid to take a
Exactly.
step back and take a look at the bigger picture. Because sometimes the answers that you've been looking for are lying just beyond the frame. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.